Hi guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel. Today is Valentine's Day. Well, the day that I'm filming it is. The day that you're watching it might not be Valentine's Day still. We'll see. But either way, I hope you had a lovely Valentine's/Galentine's Day. I just think I love the aesthetic of Valentine's Day. I think it's so cute and fun. And whether you're, it's just a day of love, celebrating with your family, your friends, your partner, just self-love, whatever. We love that. I mean, Serena on Valentine's Day just wanted to sit and watch movies and write about how much Valentine's Day sucked and eat chocolate. So if that's your plan for today, I love that for you as well. I actually had a Valentine's party. Some of my decorations are still up. I'll put like cute little pictures in here. If you want to see more of those, you can go and follow me on Instagram. I never say to follow me on Instagram, but I mean, you guys can if you want to, and interact with me over there. That's fun, replying to your guys' DMs and stuff. That's always really fun. But anyway, so yeah, I had a Valentine's party, and it was super cute, super fun. If you want to see the food that I made for it, I also have a vegan Instagram. It's Lauren's Vegan Bakery, where I show food that I make and stuff. Oh my god, the self-promo in this first 5 minutes. Who do I think I am? Yeah, I'm still in that Valentine's-y spirit. So I thought today I would film another one of my ranking love interests videos. So far we have ranked Serena, Blair, Dan, Vanessa, Nate. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh god, I hope I haven't forgotten someone. And today we're going to be ranking Chuck's love interests, and then the next video in this series will be ranking Jenny's love interest, and then that'll be it for the individual ones, and then it will be the one you guys have been requesting and waiting for, ranking every single love interest. So for that video, it's not just the couples we've already spoken about, it'll also be Lily and Rufus will be in there, Rufus and Bex, Lily and Bar, Ivy and William, just Gabrielle, what was his name? Gabrielle and Poppy, absolutely everybody will be included in that video. And I think it's 100 couples or something, maybe less, maybe 80. It's still a lot. So I'm super excited about that. So that video will be coming soon. I know you guys have really been asking for that, but yes, today we're going to be ranking Chuck's love interest. Also, how freaking cute, I'm going to have to show you, is this shirt that my nan got me for Christmas. Actually, stop. How cute is this shirt? So Chuck has 8 love interests that we're going to talk about today, which honestly doesn't feel like that many compared to some of the other characters that we talked about, from Gossip Girl, but also from Pretty Little Liars. I mean, considering that Chuck is kind of the player of the show, but I guess also it does kind of make sense because he does more hookups, casual things, girls that we don't ever really see again. So I guess it does kind of make sense that he doesn't have too many actual serious contenders. And to be honest with you, most of these aren't serious contenders, but they are who I could compile, so let's just get straight into it. So at number 8, I had to include her because obviously they did kiss and they did end up having sex, but it is Jenny. And I kind of did this more of just a formality for the format of how I do these videos. I always include everyone that has kissed or flirted or anything like that. So that is why I have Jenny on this list, not because I think she was ever a good love interest for Chuck. They have 2 different story arcs. We have the initial story arc in the pilot, and then we have when they kind of actually get together, not dating, but sleep together in season 3, in the season 3 finale, Last Tango, Then Paris, I think it's called. So we have 2 different arcs here. The first arc is obviously kind of fueled by the writers wanting Chuck to be this purely antagonistic character. And I see where they're coming from, because when I read the first book, I actually have a whole video on the first book in the Gossip Girl series, if you want to go and watch that and see my thoughts on it and maybe learn a bit more about the characters, how they are in the books as opposed to the TV show. When I read the first book, the pilot made a lot more sense to me. based on how the characters acted in the first book. Because Chuck, not like spoilers for the books really or anything, but Chuck is not a big character. I think in the second book he's not even in it, or maybe the third book, I can't remember. But yeah, in the first book he is not a big character. He's more of a kind of extended character, kind of like someone, I don't even know, more like Bart, I guess, like someone that doesn't really show up that often, isn't that interlinked with the main characters. Like him and Nate aren't best friends, and he's not dating anybody that we know. He's just kind of this like sleazy guy. And the whole point of his character, they say in the books, I don't know the exact quote, but it's basically like he has been around for so long and his parents are friends with our parents that, like, even though he does all these sleazy things, we kind of just look past it and he's just part of our friend group just because he has been forever. And that's just kind of how the Upper East Side works. And he is very gross and very, like, you know, all that stuff in the books, how he is in the pilot episode, right? And I think they were really trying to play into that. I think Blair is also a lot more mean in that first episode, like how she is in the books. She's very cruel in that first book, especially to Serena. So I think they really wanted to play into that and really project, these are our bad guys, Chuck and Blair, these are our good guys, Serena and Dan. And so I struggle with the pilot because I know that a lot of people use that as a reason why Chuck is a terrible character. And I agree. I think his behaviour in the pilot is obviously inexcusable. And I talked a lot about this in my Jenny Humphrey Deserves Better video. I think people are so harsh on her. And in reality, this moment in the pilot would have stayed with her for a long time. And nobody really brings it up again. Nobody talks to her about it. And I think with pilots and stuff, I always try and take them with a little bit of a grain of salt and not apply them too much to how the character progresses across the rest of the season. And I say this because, like in the pilot, right, some of the actors are different. It's like in the Pretty Little Liars pilot, Alice's mum is different, and Toby has a different actor, and the Hastings parents have different actors, and so does Ian, and all this other stuff. Things like Arya's house is different, and Spencer's bedroom, I think, is different. And in the Gossip Girl pilot, Chuck and Nate, they ride the bus to school, which obviously they never do again and does not fit their characters whatsoever, as if they would ever be caught dead on the public school bus. You know what I mean? Eleanor is played by a different actress, and I think even from the first episode to the second episode, we see a shift in the characters, and especially by the end of season 1, you know, when they kind of knew which characters paired well together and what they wanted to do with the storyline moving forward. I think the pilot has less and less to do with that as the show goes on. It's the episode that they are using to pitch their show to the network. So they need it to be intense, they need it to be dramatic, they need clear-cut bad guys, good guys, like, you know, what is the story here kind of thing, in order to be picked up. And then once they are able to learn about these characters more and develop them more and how they want to write them. And they then discovered that Leighton and Ed had really great chemistry, and that's where the Chuck and Blair relationship comes from. And this was basically a really long tangent to say that I don't think that first arc, as horrible as it is and as awful as the scene as it is to watch, I don't think the writers ever intended for us to take that scene and base Chuck's character or Jenny's character off of that scene for the rest of the series. So for me, they're two very separate arcs. You have that first one, and then you have when they are together in season 3. And when they're together in season 3, I think it is purely based on loneliness. It is rooted in thinking that they had lost absolutely everything. For Chuck, it was losing Blair. He thought that he had lost her forever, that she had fully given up on him. And then for Jenny, it was basically losing her whole world. Blair had been so horrible and spiteful to her that day, telling her that nobody loved her, not even her brother or her dad, and that she basically had messed everything up for everyone, and she was the cause of everyone's problems on the Upper East Side. So I think when she went there looking for Nate. She didn't even go there looking for Chuck. So I think it was just a horrible series of events that kind of like knocked into one another. And because of that, we get them ultimately sleeping together, because I think they were both just trying to escape how sad and lonely they felt. And that person just happened to be there. I do think that Chuck, being the older of the two, by like, I think it's like 2 years or something, should have put a stop to that. I think just in general, the writers shouldn't have done it. I think it was really unfair to Jenny, considering the pilot. Like, when you consider the pilot, that he had attacked her, and then she goes on after she had said about how she wanted her first time to be meaningful and she wanted it to be special, for then it to end up being with the person that had actually, you know, attacked her in the first episode. I just thought that was always really sad, and not only a disservice to Jenny's character and what they had kind of built with her, but also to Chuck's character, and the kind of story arc they were trying to do with him, because they had given us this character development of him and that he was really changed, and him and Blair were really sweet together when they were actually a couple in this season. Then we have the thing with the hotel, and you think it can't get any lower than this, and then they kind of diminish his character development again in the finale. I don't even know where I was going with this. I basically just went on a huge long tangent that probably wasn't even like suitable for this video. But basically I have Jenny at the bottom because they were never a good pair for each other, but I don't think the show ever intended for that to be the case. I think they just intended for it to be some kind of like weird Shakespearean tragedy pairing between the two of them, and Jenny is one of the loves of my life and she deserves the world, and I think she deserves far, far better than Chuck Bass. So yeah, that's why I have Jenny at number 8. I think that one's kind of an obvious one, but I did just have to include them because they do technically, I wouldn't even call it a romantic connection, but they have a physical connection, I guess. At number 7, I have Elle. So Elle is the girl that Chuck meets at the Gentleman's Club, and then in season 2.
Hey, just one question. How do you feel about Brazil?
And kind of decides that he wants to like save her in a weird way, and like rescue her from this life that she's living, but it turns out that she is actually just playing him, and she just wanted money and just wanted to escape, but not with him. She was just using him to do that, and so because of that, obviously she didn't care about him, so I have them lower down. But also I think she seemed quite a bit older, and Chuck's supposed to be like 17 in this season, or 18 maybe at most. So yeah, icky, and yeah, you just treat him horribly. Not that Chuck doesn't treat everyone horribly, but like, yeah, it just felt weird because she was obviously seemed older to then prey on this boy and know that he liked her and then just use him for like his money and his connections. Is just like gross. At number 6, I have Alessandra, and I have her here because even though they weren't a genuine couple, like he just kind of used her in order to get to Dan and sabotage his book. I think they're still better than obviously him and Jenny and him and Elle, because she was, you know, a better age for him. And, or was she? I don't know. How old was she meant to be? Who knows with these shows, honestly. But she actually seemed like a nice person. So I think had he actually been genuinely interested in her, maybe it would have been, you know, a bit of a good moral compass for him. but she's a little bit boring and I find her a little bit annoying as well. And yeah, the chemistry was just not there. Like, even though we knew that he was faking it, like, even so, their scenes together just didn't, there was just no, like, spark there between the two of them. So yeah.
Hold all my calls and messenger Dan's proposal onto Jonathan Carr.
At number 5, I have Raina, and honestly, Raina is carrying this because I love her. I adore Raina. I thought she was such a good character. I wish they'd kept her around for longer.
There's a man and a towel in my bathroom right now. So, maybe another time.
I mean, you'll know this if you watch my Nate version of this video, but I much preferred her with Nate than I did with Chuck. But I did think it was sweet that he seemed to genuinely care about her, and they seem to genuinely bond, like when they are talking about how they used to live in hotels as kids, and they had a bit of a similar upbringing, which I thought was sweet to see Chuck kind of open up about, because we don't see him talk about his childhood very often, and almost never in a positive light. And kind of the one time that he did open up, Dan was using him to write a book about him or like a story about him. So I feel like it was kind of nice to see him have someone that understood him in a way that I guess the other cast didn't. And also that, you know, his mother had died and her mother had also died. So it just was nice to see them be able to kind of bond over that and for him to open up a bit more. And also I liked that she saw him for who he really was, even though that ultimately led to them breaking up. I liked that she was very no nonsense with him. She spoke her mind. She always, you know, was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm very independent. Like, we can do whatever we're going to do, but it is in no way going to get in the way of what I'm doing. And also they kind of started out with him lying, like it was all a manipulation for like a scheme, so that also puts them lower down on the list. And like I said, I really preferred Nate and Raina, so I feel like number 5 kind of felt about right for them. At number 4, this is kind of like a, I don't know, what do they call it, like a crack ship or something? I don't really know. Where you're kind of like, this is a ridiculous ship. And I don't ship it because actually maybe I do a little bit. That's why I have it at number 4. But it's Georgina. And you might be thinking to yourselves, when have Georgina and Chuck ever interacted, like romantically? And they haven't that we have seen on the show, like in actual scenes. But Chuck does tell Serena, I think it is, that he lost his virginity to Georgina.
Sound like you didn't lose your virginity to her in 7th grade.
6th, actually, and I've been avoiding her ever since. The bitch is a psycho.
They were a thing, or at least, you know, some kind of something in the past. That's why I included her on this list. And honestly, I think, like, just if they did really want to lean into that, like, Chuck evil side, pairing him with Georgina could have been, like, the ultimate villain couple. I think they're also 2 of the funniest characters on the show, just in that kind of, like, quick humor, like, yeah, dry, like, wit kind of thing. I think they would have paired really well. I mean, their scenes together, we don't get loads, but like when he goes to get her from the church camp and scenes when they do interact, it is genuinely really funny. They have like really good banter and on-screen chemistry. So I actually think this couple could have really worked if that was kind of the direction they wanted to go in with Chuck's character. I think that would have been actually kind of a fun pairing to see. Yeah, I don't know. I maybe like would have been into it. I'm not gonna lie. Tell me what you think in the comments. Okay, now we're breaking into the top 3. And at number 3, I have Vanessa. And I feel like this might be kind of a hot take because obviously people don't like Vanessa, so any opinion involving her is always going to be a bit of a hot take, which is fine. I'm preparing myself for that.
Let's pretend last night didn't happen.
We could just as easily pretend that this didn't happen.
And hopefully.
But I actually thought they had really good chemistry, and I think it's because the actors actually dated in real life. I'm thinking about doing a video where I talk about Gossip Girl, like behind the scenes, like what was going down between the cast and just in the world and everything that was kind of going on through the 6 seasons that they actually had filmed. Like, you know, the supposed feud between Blake and Leighton and who dated who, and like what other movies did they star in at this time, and what kind of, you know, writer strikes and all that kind of stuff. If you guys would be interested in that, then yeah, let me know, because I think that would be kind of fun. But I guess a sneak peek for that video, Ed and Jessica did actually date in real life. So obviously those two had chemistry, and I think that really showed with the Chuck and Vanessa kind of fling that they had. It was just kind of like a one night stand sort of deal, but I actually thought they worked pretty well together. Like when she was showing him the bar that she wanted to save, and she was starting to see more of his relationship with Bart and kind of how he is the way, like why he is the way that he is, which I thought was sweet, because we don't see Chuck, like I said, really open up about much with anyone aside from like Blair and like Nate. So to see him kind of interact in that way with someone a bit more outside of the group, and not be so kind of like closed off, I thought was nice and gave us a good insight into his character. And I thought it would have been also kind of fun to see Vanessa really in the Upper East Side world, like properly, because when she was with Nate, she was kind of starting to dip her toe in, and then they obviously broke up. So I think her, you know, coming to these lavish parties with Chuck and all that kind of stuff would have been a bit fun. I think they would have had a fun dynamic as well, and maybe she would have brought out a different side to him, and I don't know, I just think that would have been kind of fun. I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity, just making it a one night stand rather than maybe them actually giving it a go and dating. I just think, yeah, I feel like that could have been kind of fun. But number 2, I have Eva, and she is the girlfriend that Chuck starts seeing after he is shot at the end of season 3, and they are kind of living together in Paris, and then he's like living under a different name. He then comes clean and brings her back to New York.
Thank you.
Welcome to Paris, Henry.
For me, listen, I have her at number 2 because I think on paper they worked, and their scenes together are sweet. I think she was a good influence on him. You know, she wanted to do the charity work, and she just seemed like a genuinely lovely person. But for me, they just didn't have that like chemistry, really. I don't know what it was about their scenes together. Like the writing, like the things they said to each other and all of that, like so like cute. They worked. I thought Eva was absolutely gorgeous. I first saw her in Harry Potter, and I love her actress. I think she's amazing. So I don't know what it was. I just didn't feel the chemistry between them. I liked her as a character, but yeah, I don't know. But I put them at number 2 because I feel like maybe that's a me issue. I don't know. I still feel like they could have worked, and had Blair not been his endgame, I think Eva would have worked. Honestly, I think maybe Vanessa would have worked as well, but you guys aren't ready for that conversation. So yeah, I thought she was sweet. I thought she was gorgeous. I thought, you know, I liked that she just seemed genuinely nice. Like, everyone in this show has their ups and their downs. You know, even like Dan, who's supposed to be the moral compass, or Nate, who's supposed to be like the, oh, I've never sent a tip to Gossip Girl, like part-time conscious Nate Archibald. But then, like, even with Nate, like, his conscience is part-time. We know this. If you watch my Ultimate Gossip Girl video, you know that man's conscience is only working part-time. He does shady things as well. So it was nice to actually have a character that just seemed genuinely nice and didn't have any bad intentions. And ultimately, good for her for choosing herself and being like, I don't think I'm cut out for this life. I'm gonna leave that behind. But yeah, I think they would have worked if the writers had like stuck with that. And I think it was a shame that she left in the way that she did, especially when they weren't going to have Chuck and Blair get back together for like ages after that. Like Blair just kind of sabotaged it. And I think it made me not like Blair's character in that moment as well, because she was just really horrible and sabotaged it. Obviously because she like missed Chuck or she wanted revenge. Like I think it's because she still loved him, but she wouldn't admit it. And then like it starts this whole war between them, and then poor Jenny gets in the crossfires of that as well. So yeah, I think maybe they should have just stuck with that instead of having Blair ruin it for then that to just still not really go anywhere. So at number 1, who I think is best suited for Chuck, I feel like this isn't really a surprise, but I have Chuck and Blair. Blair Cornelia Waldorf. I have her at number 1.
You may kiss the bride.
I just think, and I understand where people are coming from when they say that they think this couple is toxic. I get that. And I think they kind of are. But also I think that's kind of part of the show in a way. I think the show is never intended to be like, oh, look at these great people and like all this stuff. Like they are bad people. Like that's the point, is to show that they are privileged and they are like rich and, you know, have all this power that they shouldn't really have and do horrible things to each other and, you know, all this stuff. So I think that for me, like entertainment wise, I think Chuck and Blair is one of the best like TV show ships ever. I think their scenes are incredibly well acted. I think Ed and Leighton did an amazing job with bringing their characters to life. I think their chemistry is off the charts. I think when they argue, when they're, you know, that those scenes are really intense and really well acted and entertaining, but then also when they are loved up and they're all cute and they're doing these heartfelt speeches, like that is also really moving and really emotional. So I just think overall I really like their characters. I really enjoy their story arc. There's obviously things I would change about it, but I do like it. And I think ultimately they were the best match for each other. And for like TV sake, I think it was definitely the best path to go down, the most entertaining path. And yeah, I just really love them. I always have since I first watched it. I think Chuck's character has fluctuated in popularity as people have been rewatching and as the years have gone on. I think he had a huge following when it first came out. Like people were obsessed with Chuck Bass, like on a level that I can't even tell you. Like I can't even know who I would like liken it to now. Maybe like Steve, what's his name? Is it Steve from Stranger Things, or like Eddie? Like one of those where everyone just went nuts for him, right? I feel like you don't really get that with TV shows anymore, but that's a whole nother rant about the way that TV is today. I won't bore you with that now. But yeah, Chuck was huge. There was Mrs. Chuck Bass, everything on like Etsy and Tumblr, hundreds of thousands of posts about him and like love for him and everything. People love Chuck Bass, right? They still do. And then you have someone like Dan. And Dan was not a hugely beloved character. He is often left out. Like it'll be like, are you a Chuck or an 8 girl? Like nobody even talks about Dan. And so I think that it's interesting that as the audience that watched it is getting older, and also I think as the internet has grown and people are more aware of what we would call like, I guess, yeah, like toxic relationships, or people being able to share their opinion on not just relationships in shows, but also in real life and all this kind of stuff. We have so much more information, so many more opinions and all this stuff. And I think now people rewatching are applying those, you know, it's a different time. They're applying them to now, like to how society is now and how we talk about things and how we're a lot more open about relationships and dynamics. And I think that has played a huge role in Chuck's popularity, and especially in his relationship with Blair, where that I feel people were so hardcore for Cher. People, like, it was crazy. It was crazy the way that people loved Chuck and Blair together. They were just one of the most iconic couples of the 2000s, right? Or the, like, 2010s, whatever you want to go with it. And I think as people are starting to rewatch, they're obviously like, okay, Chuck did these really horrible things that a lot of people kind of let slide because they were like, oh my God, it's Cher. And in doing that, I think that has brought Dan and Blair to the forefront more, whereas when it first happened, it was kind of like a Spaleb situation, right? Spencer and Caleb. Everyone was like, no, this is bad, this is terrible, I hate this, like Rachel and Joey, like that kind of vibe, right? And then as people rewatch and they get older and they have their own experiences and everything like that, you then start to look at it a little bit differently. Like, I feel like now we have a lot more Rachel and Joey shippers than we used to, right? It used to be Ross and Rachel. And now you have people that are like, actually, I think Rachel should have ended up with Joey because he treated her better and this and that. And I think that same thing has also happened with Dan and Blair and Chuck and Blair. People are looking at Dan and they're like, he treated her so much better. He was a better fit for her. Chuck, you know, did all these awful things and their relationship was toxic. Theirs was the healthier relationship out of the two. Do I think Dan and Blair's relationship was the healthier of the two? Honestly, I think it's debatable. I think Dan did really love her, even though this isn't about them. It's supposed to be a video about Chuck, but I can't help it. I'm on a ranty, like, vibe today, I guess. But I think Dan and Blair also had really unhealthy parts to it as well, especially considering they made it seem like she did still love Chuck even throughout their relationship. Also, the fact with Serena and that whole thing that just made it a bit messy, and Dan's constant jealousy over Blair and his weirdly, like, overprotective controllingness about her and not trusting her. Like, to me, that also isn't an insanely healthy relationship. I guess in comparison, maybe it is. But yeah, I think that's interesting. And I also think that the rise in Penn Badgley has had a huge impact on this as well. I think that him having his kind of resurgence with the Netflix show You and his increased popularity has increased the popularity of Dan as a character. Because, like I said, people were not huge fans of Dan at the time. You know, it was kind of like no, Dan, absolutely not. Aside from my best friend Miranda, she's always loved Dan. And now that Penn has increased in popularity and people love him, like he's everywhere. He has his podcast, he has his show on Netflix, and people are really into him now and love him, as they should. He's amazing. But yeah, he's become a lot more popular. And I think in turn, when people go back and they watch Gossip Girl, or if they've never seen it and they just want to see Penn in something else, so they watch Gossip Girl, they go into it liking Penn and therefore kind of like Dan more. And therefore like Dan and Blair more. Right? Whereas I think Ed's popularity has definitely decreased in the past few years. And therefore I think that impacts Chuck and Chuck's popularity. Because that's kind of natural, you know, you watch shows with your favourite actors in them and you immediately kind of like that character more. Like for me, I love Lucy Hale. She's one of my, like, probably my favourite actors of all time. I just adore her, love her in everything she's been in. And therefore, Aria is my favourite liar. And I think I am biased in that sense because I know a lot of people don't like Aria. For me, I've always loved her. She's always been my favourite. But I think because I also loved Lucy Hale, that then also had an impact on that, like, going in. So I think the same thing is kind of happening now with Dan and Blair and Chuck and Blair. For me, I think out of the two, I'm still Chuck and Blair, despite the kind of change in opinion as the show has gone on. I think it's kind of an opinion I've always maintained. For me, Dan and Blair, loved them as friends, thought they were great as friends, thought their chemistry was really good. But ultimately, I think for the TV show, I think Chuck and Blair were the better choice. And, you know, people will say, oh, you know, Blair's too good for Chuck and things like that. And I think she has good character development, but I think Chuck also does as well. And I think Blair still does horrible things, but people love her, so they kind of excuse those horrible things. And ultimately, I don't think she's like some saint, but also I don't think she's ever supposed to be. Like I said, that's not the aim of this show. It's to show these rich people and the horrible things that they do to each other and the things that they get away with. And therefore, I think Chuck and Blair ending up together is actually kind of perfect because they're both flawed characters. They both have a similar, like, kind of arc to them. And I think they are ultimately the best suited for each other, and that's why I have her at number 1 after an incredibly long rant. So yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think? I feel like for a video that's supposed to be about Chuck, I've barely spoken about him, and just got on 2 like very long rants. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who did you like him with? Who did you not like him with? Is there anyone that you actually, you know, he didn't get with that you maybe would have paired him with? And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video in this series, which will be the Jenny video, and then we will have ranking all of the characters, which is just, yeah, we've got 84 characters to rank at the minute. So I'm super excited about that video. Make sure that you like, you comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!